Hey everyone, today we are making my new summer obsession, lemon blueberry muffins. I've made them 3 times already and probably will again. They are so light and tender, full of juicy, tart blueberries, zesty lemon, drizzled with butter, and topped with the crunchiest sugar zest mixture. If that sounds good to you, then let's go get started. So in a small bowl here, I'm adding a 1/4 cup of sugar and 2 teaspoons of lemon zest. And we're just going to stir that together and set it aside. That is our crunchy topping. In a large bowl, I have 2½ cups of all-purpose flour. And to that, I am adding 4 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then we are just going to stir that around and set it aside. And in a separate bowl, I have 6 tablespoons of butter melted. And I'm adding 1 1/4 cup of sugar. Two large eggs. And 1 1/2 cups of sour cream. And we just want to mix that together really well. Then I'm just going to add the wet ingredients to the dry ingredients and fold that all together. And just like any other cakes, you don't want to overwork the batter, otherwise they'll get a little bit tough, so you just want to very gently fold it a few times. It's okay if a little bit of flour or lumps remain. And then we are going to fold in the rest of our lemon zest, which is about 3 to 4 tablespoons. And 1 1/2 cups of fresh or frozen blueberries. So I have my oven preheated to 400 degrees and I have cupcake liners in my muffin tin, and I'm going to use 1/3 cup scoop to divide the batter among the 12 cups. And once that's done, I have another 2 tablespoons of butter that I melted, and we are just going to brush that all over the tops. And then sprinkle our zesty sugar on top of the butter. And then we just want to bake them for 20 to 25 minutes or until they are nice and golden and a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. And I just like to let them cool in the muffin tin for 10 minutes before moving them to a wire rack to cool completely. And there you have it, it's as easy as that. I really hope you enjoyed coming along with me and making my lemon blueberry muffins. Like I said, I've made these a bunch of times already this summer. I've been tweaking the recipe to perfect them, and I've been passing them around to friends and family who have all given them rave reviews. So I really hope you enjoy them as much as we all have. If you give this recipe a try or have any questions, please leave me a comment. I love hearing from you guys. And as always, thank you so much for watching until the end. We'll see you next time. Bye. Today we are making 3 no-bake desserts for these hot summer months, which means no heating up the kitchen in order to get a sweet treat. These are all so cooling and refreshing. We'll be making frozen s'mores, no-bake strawberry crunch cheesecake, and no-bake banana pudding. So let's go get started. All right, it's hot out today. Let's make some frozen s'mores. So to start out with, I have my sheet pan lined with parchment paper, and I have 12 graham crackers that I am just breaking in half. And we're just gonna line those all on the pan. So you'll have 24 squares. Then I have 1 box of instant chocolate pudding mix and 2.5 cups of milk, and I'm just going to combine those to make the pudding. And then I am going to fold in 1/2 cup of Cool Whip or frozen whipped topping. And then I'm just going to pour this all over the graham crackers, and we're going to pop this in the freezer for about 30 minutes to an hour, or until it's nice and firm. So meanwhile, we are going to make the marshmallow layer. So I have 4 ounces of cream cheese softened, and to that I am adding in 7 ounces of marshmallow cream. And we just want to whisk that until smooth. If you can, use a hand mixer because this was a little difficult, as you can see. You want to try and get all of the lumps out. And then I'm going to fold in another 2 cups of the Cool Whip into this mixture. So then once that chocolate mixture is frozen, we are going to spread the marshmallow layer all over the top. And then we are going to add 12 more graham crackers to the top of the marshmallows. And again, broken in half, so you have 24 squares. Then we just want to freeze this for about 6 hours. Overnight is even better, just to make sure that everything is nice and firm. So now it is the next day. It's very cold, so we're gonna take that off of the pan onto a cutting board and just cut these into 24 squares. These are so good. The perfect summer treat and like the ultimate ice cream sandwich. Seriously, we love these. Okay, so today we are making my no-bake strawberry crunch cheesecake. If you remember those strawberry crunch ice cream bars that you used to always get in the school cafeteria, it's kind of like a twist on that. That's so good. Okay, so we're going to be using this little food processor a lot. So I have 24 golden Oreos or vanilla cream sandwich cookies that I am just pulsing until they are crushed. And then I'm going to mix that with 4 tablespoons of melted butter just to form a crust. So I have my 9-inch springform pan, and I'm just going to press that mixture all in the bottom and place that in the freezer for about 30 minutes just so that it hardens up, because again, we are not baking the crust. So while we have that food processor out, I'm going to make the strawberry crumble topping that's going to go on the outside. So I have freeze-dried strawberries, And then I'm going to add in about 14.3 ounces of golden Oreos. This package I had was, I think, 20 something ounces, so I ended up using the whole package for this recipe between the crust and the crumble. So we're just going to pulse that all together and then add in a half a cup of melted butter. And then we just want to set this aside. You can keep it in the refrigerator in an airtight container for up to a week. But this is that exact flavor of those strawberry crunch ice cream bars. Oh, it's so good. Okay, so last time using this food processor, it's getting a lot of work in today. I have 1 cup of fresh strawberries that I just want to puree. So that's why I did that in the order that I did. So the wet ingredient, the strawberries, are last, and I'm not washing it a million times. So then we just want to set that aside. And now I have 24 ounces of cream cheese softened, which is 3 packages. And to that I am adding in 2 cups of powdered sugar and 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, as well as a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then using the hand mixer, we are just going to combine this until it is nice and smooth. So then we're just going to set that aside. I gave the beaters of my mixture a wash, and now I have 1.5 cups of heavy cream that I am going to use the hand mixer and whip that until we get stiff peaks. And stiff peaks is when you turn the beaters upside down and they still stand straight up. So then we're just going to fold the heavy whipping cream into the cream cheese mixture and divide it in half into 2 bowls, and add the pureed strawberries to 1 bowl, and that will be our strawberry layer. So now we're going to take that springform pan out of the freezer and put our strawberry layer in first, and just make that nice and smooth and even. And then add the vanilla layer on top of that. So then we just want to cover this really well with plastic wrap and freeze it for at least 4 to 6 hours. Overnight is definitely recommended. We want this to hold together, and you never really know if it's still soft in the center. So now I just am removing the ring from the outside of my springform pan, and we are going to add this crumble all over the top and sides. And then you just want to keep it in the freezer until you are ready to serve. And look at how gorgeous this cake is. It tastes just like a cheesecake you would have been baking for an hour in the oven, and it is just so refreshing and cool and tastes exactly like one of those strawberry ice cream bars. So nostalgic, it just reminds me of chasing the ice cream truck in the summers. Because this was always my choice, that or the SpongeBob bar, which never really tasted good, but it was cute. Today we are going to make my no-bake banana pudding. Okay, so this banana pudding is classic, but really, really easy. So I'm just slicing up 3 bananas. If they're smaller, you can do 4, and you just thin slices. And then I'm going to make our vanilla pudding. So I have 1 box of instant vanilla pudding and 3 cups of whole milk. I'm just whisking that together until it's smooth. And then I'm going to stir in 4 ounces of Cool Whip, or the frozen whip topping. And then I have a 9 by 13 inch dish, and I'm placing a layer of the vanilla wafer cookies all on the bottom. And then I'm going to put a layer of bananas, half of the pudding mixture, and then we're going to repeat again and do another layer of cookies, a layer of bananas, and the remaining pudding. And then I'm going to add about another 4 ounces of the Cool Whip on top and garnish with some more bananas and crushed up vanilla cookies. And then you just want to refrigerate this for at least 2 to 3 hours just to let it all set up and let those flavors melt. The thinly sliced bananas almost become one with the pudding, and it tastes like vanilla flavored pudding. And then you've got those sweet, crumbly cookies in there. Oh. This is just such a sweet summer treat. It's no fuss, easy to just scoop and serve. Great for cookouts and potlucks, just any kind of crowd situation. It's just the best kind of dessert you can bring. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed coming along and making 3 no-bake desserts with me that are perfect for summer. They're all really easy. And again, in these hot summer months, I don't want to be heating up my kitchen if I don't have to, but we always want something sweet for dessert at the end of the night. So these are 3 great options, and they're also great for parties and get-togethers. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to give it a like, as it really helps my channel. Subscribe if you want some more unique and delicious recipes every week, and definitely leave me a comment if you give any of them a try. Thank you so much for watching until the end, and we will see you in the next one. Bye guys. Hey everyone, today we are making zucchini bread 2 ways, one sweet and one savory. They are both so delicious for breakfast or a snack, and a great way to use fresh zucchini from the garden or farmer's market. The sweet version is chocked full of cinnamon and walnuts. It's just absolutely beautiful. And the savory version has onions and cheddar cheese, and it's almost like a quiche bread. So let's get started by making my sweet zucchini bread. So I have 1 large zucchini here that I am just scooping out some of the seeds so that the bread isn't too watery. If your zucchini doesn't have a lot of seeds, you can just skip that step. And then we are just going to grate it. And we're looking for about 2.5 cups of zucchini here. And then to a large bowl, I am adding 3 eggs, as well as 1 cup of brown sugar and 1 cup of white sugar. And we're going to mix that around. And then I am adding 1 cup of vegetable oil and 3 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and a 1/4 cup of applesauce. Now in a separate large bowl, I have 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 3 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, 2 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt, and we're just going to whisk that around, and then we want to add our wet ingredients to the dry and just fold that to combine. And this is optional, but I like to add 1 cup of chopped walnuts. So this recipe actually makes 2 loaves of zucchini bread. I like to make 1 regular loaf and 2 mini loaves because I like to share it with my friends and family. So I greased all of the loaf pans and I am just dividing the batter among them. And my oven is preheated at 325 degrees, and we are going to bake this for about 45 minutes and 35 minutes if you're making mini loaves. And to check, we can use the toothpick test, and if you stick a toothpick in the center and it comes out clean, we are good to go. I like to let it cool in the pan for about 10 minutes, and then I run a knife along the outside to loosen it and flip it out onto a wire rack to cool. This bread is something I've been eating since I was a little kid. It is just so good, the perfect amount of sweetness. You really don't taste the zucchini, it just adds a lot of moisture to the bread. Very similar to a banana bread if you've never had it before. It is especially good toasted with a little bit of butter. Now moving on to the savory zucchini bread. This is one I've actually only been making for the past 5 or 6 years. It was a recipe from a dear woman that I worked with. And I had never had a savory zucchini bread before, but it's so delicious. It's almost like a mix between a quiche and a bread. So we are doing the same thing with the zucchini as we did with the sweet bread. And again, we are looking for about 2 to 2.5 cups of the zucchini. And then I have a half an onion that I am finely dicing. And to a large bowl, I am adding 2 cups of Bisquick baking mix. And then to that, I am adding 4 eggs and a half a cup of oil. And once that's combined, we are going to fold in the zucchini and onion and 1 cup of grated cheddar cheese. Now this recipe makes 1 loaf, so again I have my loaf pan greased and I am just pouring the batter into the pan, and I have the oven preheated to 350 degrees, and we are going to bake this for about 35 to 40 minutes. And once again we are going to allow this to cool for about 10 minutes in the pan, and then we are going to flip it out. And look how golden and delicious that is. Oh my gosh. As I said before, it's almost like a quiche, and it is definitely a great breakfast bread, but I've also had a couple of slices of this with a nice salad for dinner, and it is just wonderful on a super hot summer day. I really hope you enjoyed coming along with me and making zucchini bread 2 ways. Whether in our gardens or farmers markets, zucchini is abundant here. So every summer I make both of these breads at least a couple of times. As always, if you give these recipes a try or have a question for me, please be sure to leave a comment down below. I love hearing from you guys, and thank you so much for watching to the end. We'll see you in the next one. Bye! Hey guys, today we are making my 5 favorite ice cream flavors of the summer. I finally replaced my 15-year-old ice cream maker this year, and it has been getting lots of use. While you can make these recipes without the machine, it does take a little bit more time and work to do so. I will be showing how to do it with the machine, but on my website I will list how to do it the other way. Today we will be making chocolate marshmallow ice cream, blueberry pie, coconut lime, coffee and donuts, and mint chocolate chip. We've got a lot to cover, so let's go get started. So starting out with our chocolate marshmallow here, I have a large bowl and I have 3 large egg yolks that I am going to mix together with 3/4 cup of sugar. And then in a saucepan over medium-low heat, I have 1.5 cups of milk, and to that I am adding 1/4 cup of cocoa powder. and 1/8 teaspoon of salt. And we just want to whisk that and bring it to a simmer, but we do not want it to boil. And then what we're doing here is tempering the eggs. And basically what that means is we are adding the hot mixture very, very slowly to the eggs so that they do not cook and curdle. So what we do is just drizzle a little bit of the hot milk mixture into the eggs, whisking very quickly so it doesn't cook. And then that way when we add the eggs into the hot milk, it won't be a shock. And hopefully they won't curdle. So now the whole mixture is back in the pot on the stove, and you just want to turn the heat down to low and keep whisking and mixing this for about 3 to 4 minutes or until thickened. And the best way to tell is to dip a spoon in, and if you run your finger along the center of the spoon and the mixture doesn't drip down, then it's ready. So then I like to take a strainer, just in case we have any egg chunks in there. So to the mixture I'm adding 6 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate chips, 2 cups of heavy cream, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And we want to put some plastic wrap on top of the bowl, but you want to press it right down on top of the mixture so that it doesn't form like a crust or like a film. And then we just want to chill that for at least 3 hours. When we're ready to go, we are going to set up our ice cream maker here. And if you've never used one before, you want the bowl of the ice cream machine to be in the freezer for at least 24 hours before you start churning. And that will ensure that it really freezes the ice cream properly. So we want to pour the mixture into our frozen bowl here. And we are just going to churn this for about 20 to 25 minutes or until it is nice and soft serve consistency. Then I like to use a metal loaf pan because in the metal it freezes faster. And what we're going to do is I have 1 cup of fluff that I microwaved for 10 seconds at a time for about 20 to 30 seconds until it's a little bit runny. And we're going to add half of the ice cream to the pan and then half of the fluff. And you just want to swirl it with a knife. And then the remaining ice cream and remaining fluff. And then you want to, again, put plastic wrap right down onto the ice cream and freeze it for at least 4 hours. And then it is ready to eat. This is such a classic summer flavor and one of my favorites. It's what I used to always request getting at the grocery store when I was younger. So it is very nostalgic. So now moving on to our blueberry pie ice cream. It's a very similar method here, but I have 5 egg yolks mixed with 1 cup of sugar and set that aside. And then we are heating 2 cups of milk in our saucepan over medium heat until it comes to a simmer. And then we are again going to temper the milk mixture into the eggs and put it back into the saucepan. Once again cooking for 3 to 4 minutes. And straining it into a bowl. And then to that we are going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 2 cups of heavy cream, and 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. And again, we just want to put plastic wrap on the bowl and chill it for 4 hours. Now I also have 1 cup of blueberry pie filling. It's actually leftover that I had from the American pie that I will link down below if you didn't see that. And I put it in the freezer. But you could also just use half a can. And now we are also going to make our pie crust, so to speak. So what I have here is 8 ounces of graham crackers crushed. And to that I am adding 5 tablespoons of butter melted and 2 tablespoons of flour. And we're just going to combine that and put it on a parchment lined baking sheet and bake for 10 minutes at 350 degrees. I don't know why I always do this to myself. The bowl is way too small. I have to keep telling myself, I need a bigger bowl. Choose a bigger bowl. I always make a mess. That is why my childhood nickname is Messy Jessie. Anyway, so that's going to cool, and when our ice cream has been in the refrigerator for 4 hours, we are once again going to churn it in the ice cream machine for about 20 to 25 minutes. And then I have my loaf pan again, and we are going to alternate layers between the ice cream, the blueberry pie filling, the graham crackers, and then again ice cream, blueberries, graham crackers. And we just want to cover that and freeze it for, again, about 4 hours. This one has quickly become one of my favorites. It is so perfect with those fresh tart blueberries and the super creamy vanilla ice cream and the crunchy pie crust. Oh my gosh. It is very addicting, I will warn you. So now moving on to my coffee and donuts ice cream. This is a really great way to use up stale leftover donuts. Anytime we have any leftover, I pop them in the freezer solely for this recipe. It's so good. And this one is actually an egg-free recipe, which makes it easier to cook, and if you have an egg allergy, it is a great option. So I have 2 cups of heavy cream, and I'm adding in 2/3 of a cup of sugar. And we're just going to whisk that together until the sugar starts to dissolve and it gets foamy. And then I'm adding in 1 cup of whole milk, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and 1 cup of extra strong cooled coffee. And we just want to whisk that all together and refrigerate it for at least 1 hour. And then I have 3 donuts that I'm cutting into chunks. And I always kind of like to do a mix of donuts if I can. So we want to pour the ice cream into the maker and again churn it for 20 to 25 minutes. And then when that's all done, we are going to stir in the donuts, place it into our loaf pan, and freeze it for 4 hours. This is the perfect afternoon or after dinner pick-me-up. If you love coffee ice cream, you have to try this one. Now moving on to my coconut lime ice cream. This one was actually my husband's favorite of the 5. So in a large bowl here, I am combining a 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk, a half a cup of lime juice, 1 tablespoon of lime zest, and 1 teaspoon of coconut extract, as well as a half a cup of shredded coconut. And we're just going to set that aside. And then in a separate bowl, I have 4 egg yolks that I am combining with a 1/4 cup of sugar and a pinch of salt. And again, on the stove, I am heating up 1.5 cups of milk, and we are going to, again, temper the eggs into the milk, cook it on the stove, and then we are going to strain that directly into the lime juice mixture. And then you just want to give that a good stir and again refrigerate it for a few hours. Churn it in our ice cream maker for 20 to 25 minutes. Place it in our loaf pan and freeze for about 4 hours. I think this one's definitely my husband's favorite because it's very similar to key lime pie, which he loves, but it has that delicious sweet coconutty flavor as well. It's just so creamy and refreshing. And then last but certainly not least is classic mint chocolate chip. Again, this is an eggless recipe. So I am combining 2 cups of half and half with 2 cups of heavy cream. You could also replace the half and half with milk if you don't want it to be so rich. And then I am combining 1 cup of sugar and a half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, 2 teaspoons of mint extract into that as well. And then I am adding some green food coloring. I'm using gel food coloring here. And you can use as much or as little as you'd like. You don't even really have to put it in if you don't want to. And now this one, you don't have to refrigerate it because it's not heated, but I would for about an hour or so before churning just to get it really cold. And then we are going to churn it for 20 minutes once again. And in the last 5 minutes, you want to add in a half a cup of chopped semi-sweet chocolate. And then we're going to add it to our loaf pan, freeze it for 4 hours, and then it is ready to serve. This was always one of my mom's favorite flavors, so we always had it in the house growing up. So again, it's a very nostalgic flavor. It's so fresh, but it's also so rich and creamy at the same time. Perfect for a hot summer night. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed coming along and making my top 5 ice cream flavors for the summer. I do have to say, and this is not sponsored in any way, shape, or form, but if you think you're going to make a good bit of ice cream throughout the years, invest in the ice cream maker. I will link it down below. It is well worth the money. I think it's $50 something. The last one I had lasted 15 years and it just wasn't freezing as well anymore, so I got the exact same one again. But of course, you can make it without the ice cream machine. I will have those directions listed on my website. If you try any of these, please be sure to leave me a comment and let me know what you think. And as always, thank you so much for watching to the end, and we will see you in the next one. Bye! Hey everybody, welcome back, and today we are making my quick and easy peach turnovers. We take a shortcut by using puff pastry instead of making our own dough, but we make a beautiful filling from scratch using fresh peaches, sweet brown sugar, and warm cinnamon spice. They are just so light, flaky, sweet, and scream summertime. They're great for brunch or dessert, and while they may be quick and easy, they are sure to impress, so let's go get started. So I have a medium-sized saucepan over medium-low heat, and to that I am adding 2 cups of fresh chopped peaches, a 1/4 cup of sugar and 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and 2 tablespoons of butter, and we are just going to stir that around and cook the mixture for about 5 to 7 minutes or until it's nice and bubbling and thick. And then we just want to set that aside and let it cool. Then I am preheating the oven to 400 degrees, and I have a package of puff pastry sheets that I thawed, and I'm going to cut each of the sheets into 4 squares. And to each square we are going to add about 2 to 3 tablespoons of the filling. And then we're just going to brush the edges with a mixture of 1 egg and 1 teaspoon of water that I whisked together. And that's going to help seal the edges of the pastry. So once I fold the pastry over into a triangle shape, I'm going to use a fork to crimp the edges together. And then we just want to brush the tops of each pastry with more of the egg wash. And I also like to sprinkle a little bit of sanding sugar on the top. You could also use granulated sugar. You won't see it as well, but you'll still get that nice crunchy caramelized effect. So then we are going to bake these in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes or until the pastries are nice and golden and the filling in the center is bubbling. And there you have it, a super quick and easy peach turnover pastry for summer. I really hope you enjoyed coming along and making them with me, and thank you so much once again for watching until the end, and we will see you in the next one. Bye! Hey guys, today we are making my American flag cake. This beauty is always a showstopper at 4th of July parties, and while it looks like it would be complicated to make, it's really quite simple. I'm going to show you step by step how to make this impressive cake using boxed cake mix. So let's go get started. So for this recipe, we are going to need 3 boxes of cake mix. I would recommend doing 1 red velvet cake mix and 2 white cake mixes. We are going to dye one of them blue. And we also need 2 2 9-inch cake pans and 1 6-inch cake pan, and I ended up using 3 tubs of vanilla buttercream frosting. So the white cake mix and the red velvet cake mix are going to be the stripes in our flag. So what we want to do is make one of the white box cake mixes according to the directions, and we are going to divide that between the 2 9-inch cake pans and the 6-inch cake pan. And I will mention my cake pans are all greased and have a circle of parchment paper in the bottom of them. So we want all of these cake pans to be filled with the same amount of batter. So you're going to be using a lot less in the 6-inch pan, but we want them to all be a similar thickness, and they will be very thin. So then we are going to bake it according to the box directions, but because they are thinner, it will probably take a little less time, so I would keep an eye on it. I believe mine took about 25 to 30 minutes. And then we are going to do the exact same thing with the red velvet cake mix, divided between the 2 9-inch cake pans and the 6-inch cake pan. And then for our blue layer, you want to take another boxed cake mix, either white or yellow, and dye it blue. I used a royal blue gel food coloring. And what we're going to do is actually just put the entire mix into one 9-inch cake pan, because we want it to be about double in size of the stripes, because that's what's going to give us that star section of our flag. Now I know this is a lot of baking, and if you only have 2 9-inch cake pans, that's totally fine. What I did was I made these layers over the course of 2 days and just wrapped them as I baked them and put them in the refrigerator. It actually works a lot better if you let them sit in the refrigerator for a day or overnight, because then they're just easier to put the frosting on. So once the cakes are baked, you want to let them cool in the pans for 10 minutes and then flip them out onto a wire rack to cool the rest of the way. And once we are ready to assemble the cake, what we want to do here is even out all of the cake layers. So as you'll see, what I'm doing here is taking a serrated knife, and you just want to lay it perfectly flat and just skim it along the top of the cake. And some of the layers might not need any trimming at all and may be relatively flat, but if they're domed at all, you want to just cut off the excess and make it a nice flat even layer. And don't worry, be sure to save the crumbs. I never let any of this go to waste. I like to actually turn it into cake pops to serve alongside the cake. And if you're not ready to use them right away, you can freeze them and use them at a different time. So now that all of my red and white cake layers are even, we are going to work on the blue cake. So what we want to do is cut a 6-inch circle piece of parchment paper to match the smaller sized layers. And we're just going to put that on top of the cake, and using a paring knife, I am cutting the inner circle out of the blue cake. So if you can picture it, when we assemble the cake, the smaller red and white circles are going to go on the inside of the blue, and that's what's going to give us the shorter stripes that go next to the stars on the flag. So now let's start assembling. We did have a little bit of an accident. One of my white cake layers fell on the floor and broke into pieces. So normally I would start with a white layer on the bottom, but since I do not have that, we are starting with red. And that's the great thing, this cake is very forgiving, so if one of your layers doesn't work out, you can still absolutely make this cake. It'll just be a little bit shorter. So what we want to do is layer, ideally, a white layer first. Then we're going to put some frosting, then a red layer, some more frosting, a white layer, frosting, and then our final large red layer. And then we're going to frost that. Now our big thick blue layer is going to go right on top here. And then we're going to put our white layer down. And you're going to have to kind of squeeze it in there a little bit and press it down to make them fit. And then we're going to put some more frosting on top of that. And then finally our small red layer. So now that all of our layers are assembled, we are going to do the crumb layer on our cake. Now, if you don't know, the crumb layer is basically the kind of layer that seals the cake. It's not going to be pretty, there's going to be lots of crumbs in it, but that's why it's called the crumb layer. It kind of seals in any of the loose crumbs on the cake. So we are going to completely frost the top and sides of the cake in a very, very thin layer. And then you want to put that in the refrigerator for about an hour or so until the frosting is nice and hardened. And then when we go back in and put another layer of frosting on top, it'll be nice and smooth and white with little to no crumbs, hopefully. So to frost my cake, I like to use a flat icing spatula. So what I do is I will put a big glob of frosting on the top of the cake, and then I like to use the flat icing spatula to just very carefully pull it down the sides of the cake, and then using the spatula, holding it flat, flush against the sides, I just pull it around. And it's very helpful if you have like a turntable so that you can spin the cake easily, but here I just have my cake carrier, so I'm just spinning it around as I'm going, just adding more icing to the top and then pulling it down the sides, and then holding it vertically flat along the sides and just pulling it around. And then to make the top edges look nice and flush, you want to take the spatula and just go up and straight across the top of the cake at almost like a right angle. And there you have it, all nice and frosted. You can absolutely put it in the fridge for another hour and then go back and touch it up and make it even smoother if you prefer. And there are so many fun ways that you can decorate this cake, but I like to just kind of keep it plain on the outside because then it's a surprise when you cut into the cake and pull out that first slice and you see the American flag in cake. I really hope you enjoyed coming along with me and making American flag cake. I always get so excited and love seeing people's reactions when I cut into the cake for the first time. It's just so much fun, and it really is so simple once you know how to layer the cake, but it's really impressive, and people are always shocked to see and are always so curious to know how it's done. As always, thank you so much for watching to the end. Happy 4th of July if you celebrate, and we will see you in the next one. Bye! Hey guys, today we are making New York style black and white cookies. This was a request from my husband for his birthday, one of his favorites. We had them at the restaurant that we worked at, but I had never made them before, so this is adapted from Sally's Baking Addiction, which I will link below. These beauties are so soft and pillowy, like little mini cakes with the best of both worlds, chocolate and vanilla frosting, and surprisingly, they're very easy to make, so let's go get started. So we are going to start off by combining our dry ingredients. I have 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, a half a teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to whisk those together and set them aside. And then moving over to our stand mixer here, I am adding 10 tablespoons of butter at room temperature, and I'm going to beat that together with 1 cup of sugar until it's nice and creamy. And then once that's all incorporated, I'm going to add in 1 egg at room temperature, along with 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and we are just going to mix that together. Now you want to be sure that you stop in between and scrape down the sides and the beater just to make sure that everything really gets mixed together properly. Otherwise you'll end up with chunks of butter in the cookies and they'll end up getting really flat and spread out as the butter melts while they bake. I also just had to mention I had my favorite little helper with me in the kitchen today, so you may see a cute little toddler hand in the shot. Okay, so now I'm going to add in half of the dry ingredients and mix that around. And then I also have 1/3 a cup of sour cream, but we are just going to add half of the sour cream in, mix it. Then the remaining dry ingredients, mix that. And then the remaining sour cream. And that's just going to allow us to get a nice blended batter. So now I have 2 sheet pans lined with parchment paper, and I am taking a 1/4 cup and I am scooping the cookies out onto the baking sheet. You want to space them about 4 inches apart. So this made 12 cookies all together, so you can fit about 6 per pan. And then we are going to bake those at 350 degrees for about 16 to 18 minutes or until they're slightly golden around the edges. And while we're waiting, we're going to make our frosting. Now I know Sally's Baking Addiction got this recipe from America's Test Kitchen, and I saw a lot of complaints about the frosting being too sweet, so I did kind of make my own recipe for this one. So I will link both recipes down below. I also had to double the recipe because I was making it on the fly, so it will seem like I am making way less than I am telling you, but I want to give you the right information. So you need 5 cups of confectioner's sugar, and then to that I am adding 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, 4 tablespoons of water, 2 tablespoons of corn syrup, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and see, we're looking for this nice thick consistency here, but still slightly runny. So then we want to divide this in half, and to 1/2 of the icing we are adding 8 tablespoons of cocoa powder. You're probably going to have to add a little bit more water to this to thin it out, but you will get this nice fudgy chocolatey frosting. So once our cookies came out of the oven, I cooled them on a baking rack, and now I'm flipping them over. So yes, we are frosting the bottoms of the cookies. And what you want to do is spread half of the cookie with the vanilla frosting. And I'm going to show you here with my flat spatula. You're just going to slide over and pull down, and then it's going to give you that nice even line. I'll show you one more time here. And there we go. So we are going to do that with the remaining cookies, and then you want to let that set. You can either do that on the counter or in the refrigerator for about 15 to 20 minutes. So now our vanilla frosting has set. You can see it's nice and shiny and firm, so we are going to do our chocolate side now. So really all we want to do is just carefully put it onto the other half of our cookie here. And we'll just repeat the same process with the flat spatula, just smoothing it out and just trying to pull it away from the center of the cookie to keep that nice even line. Do you see how fudgy and gorgeous that is? I have to say the chocolate side is my favorite. Are you team chocolate or vanilla? Let me know in the comments. And then we are going to allow the chocolate to set just like we did with the vanilla. And then they are all set and ready to go. We like to store them in the refrigerator. You can also freeze them for up to 3 months, and they are wonderful that way. Or you can keep them at room temperature for up to 3 days. And there you have it, our New York style black and white cookies. I really hope you enjoyed coming along with me and making these. I had so much fun doing it, and they came out absolutely perfect. Light and fluffy and perfectly sweet, and it was just like a trip down memory lane. It reminded me of when my husband and I were first dating, and they're just really so special, so I hope you enjoy them as much as we do. And if you liked the video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, as it does help my channel, and subscribe if you want to see some more recipes in the future. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye. Hey guys, today we are making easy, no churn Cookie Monster ice cream. This is my son's favorite flavor to get when we are on vacation, so I made it as a special treat for his birthday. This recipe does not require an ice cream machine or stirring in the freezer, and it is the creamiest, softest ice cream. You can easily turn this recipe into your favorite flavors or mix-ins too. A perfect way to kick off summer vacation. So let's go get started. So in the bowl of my stand mixer, I have 2 cups of very cold, heavy cream. And to that, I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract, as well as some blue food coloring. I used about 1.5 teaspoons. And we just want to whip that until we get stiff peaks, about 3 to 5 minutes. And as you can see here, when I lift the whisk out of the bowl and turn it upside down, the peaks stay standing straight up. I'm just going to mix in that food dye here that got stuck on the edge. And then I have a 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk, and we just want to fold this into the whipped cream. And this is the base recipe. The heavy cream and the sweetened condensed milk are the most important. You could switch the vanilla extract for mint extract and make mint chocolate chip, or coconut extract, whatever your favorite flavor is. So now I actually got these 2 small to-go containers of Oreos and the mini Chips Ahoy crunchy cookies, but you really want about 15 of each regular sized cookie and just crush it up. And we're just going to mix those in, reserving about a half a cup of the cookies for the top. So now I'm just going to pour it into my loaf pan. I like using loaf pans because they're metal, so they just chill faster and keep the ice cream nice and cold right away. But you can put this in any kind of airtight container that you have. So now I'm just going to add the rest of the crushed cookies on top. And look how pretty it is. Okay, so since the loaf pan obviously is not an airtight container, I'm just going to wrap it with a few layers of plastic wrap to keep it really nice and tightly sealed. And then we just want to freeze this for at least 6 hours, but I would recommend overnight, even though it is very tempting to dive into it right away, but it'll be the perfect consistency if you let it go overnight. And there you have it, my super quick and easy, no churn Cookie Monster ice cream. This is a great recipe to do with kids, especially now that it's summer break. It's a great little project to do, but like I said, you can make this into any kind of flavor combination. I do have an ice cream machine and I do use it, but this base recipe I use when we're just really in the mood for ice cream and don't have the time to freeze the cylinder and do all of that. If you give this recipe a try, please leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. And thank you so much for watching until the end. We will see you in the next one. Bye. Hey there! Today we are making my classic, quick and easy hummingbird cake. This cake is so full of flavor. Pineapples, bananas, toasted pecans. It's so tender and perfectly sweet. I keep it super simple by doing 1 layer with frosting on top. You can easily double it and do a layered cake, but it is just so beautiful as is and great for brunch, company, or a quick treat. So let's just go get started. So I am starting out by toasting my pecans. I have 2 cups going into a non-stick skillet here, and I just have it on medium-low heat, and we're just going to kind of toss them around and let them cook until they are browned and fragrant, about 5 minutes or so. And once those are done, we are just going to set them to the side in a bowl and start on our cake. So to a large bowl, I'm adding 2 cups of all-purpose flour, as well as 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, a half a teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. And we are just going to mix that together until everything is combined. And then in a separate bowl, I am adding 2 eggs. And to the eggs, I'm adding a 1/4 cup of brown sugar and 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar. And then we are going to give that a good stir and get the sugars incorporated into the eggs nicely. And then to that, I'm adding 3/4 of a cup of vegetable oil. Give that another good stir. And then I have 1 cup of crushed pineapple from a can that has been drained. But I am also adding in 3 tablespoons of the pineapple juice from the can, as well as 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 1 cup of ripe bananas. That's about 2 or 3 bananas. I know they look a little yucky, they were from the freezer. And here's a pro tip: if you're going to freeze your bananas, make sure you peel them first because they will be impossible to peel once they are frozen. And then I am going to add in 1 cup of our toasted pecans, and we're saving the other cup for on top of the cake. And once that is all stirred together, we are going to add the wet mixture to our dry ingredients. So then we are just going to gently fold them together until just incorporated. You don't want to overwork the batter here because you'll end up with a tough cake from overworking the gluten. Now I have a 9-inch cake pan here that I am greasing with a little bit of butter. If you want to make this a layered cake, you can divide it into 2 pans and just have thinner layers or double the recipe. And then I am going to put a circle of parchment paper in the bottom of the pan. And I just like doing that. It's not necessary, but it's just a little insurance to make sure that the cake doesn't stick to the bottom. I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to pour all of the batter into the 1 pan and bake this for 45 minutes to an hour, or until a toothpick in the center comes out clean. And then I'm going to let it cool in the pan for 10 minutes before we try and flip it out. And what I like to do is just run a knife along the edge of the cake before trying to flip it out onto a plate. And what I do is I flip the cake onto the plate, give it a little tap on the bottom to release it. Ah, there we go. Pull the parchment off of the bottom. And then I flip it onto the wire rack to get it right side up again. And we are just going to let that cool completely before we frost the cake, but in the meantime, let's make our frosting. So for our frosting, I have a 1/4 cup of butter softened to room temperature, as well as 1 1/4 cups of cream cheese chopped up at room temperature. And I am just going to whip those together until no lumps remain. And then I have 3 1/2 cups of powdered sugar that I'm just going to add a cup at a time until it's incorporated into the butter and cream cheese. I have had 1 too many powdered sugar explosions in my time, even in a large mixer. So I always like to go slow. They call me Messy Jessie for a reason. And then I'm adding 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And the last little bit of sugar. And once that is all nice and smooth and our cake is completely cooled, I'm going to just add all of the frosting to the top of the cake. And I like to use a spatula at first just to get all of the frosting out of the bowl. And just smooth it over the top. And then I'm going to take my straight spatula and just smooth out the top. And then I also like to just run it around the edge just to make it a little bit smoother and nicer looking. But it does not have to be perfect. That's the beauty of this cake. And then I just sprinkle the remaining 1 cup of toasted pecans on top. And there you have it, my simple, classic hummingbird cake. I really hope you all enjoyed coming along with me and making this today. It's one of my favorites. It goes great with a nice cup of coffee, and it is always a crowd pleaser. If you did like the video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, as it does help my channel, and subscribe to see some more good recipes in the future. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye! Hey guys, today we are making a fun and classic cookie cake. I don't know about you guys, but this is something so nostalgic. I feel like we always had them for our birthday parties or for friends' birthday parties growing up. It is a great alternative to a classic birthday cake, especially if someone in your family or friends prefers cookies over cake. I just love that it's the best of both worlds. It's got that super crispy, crunchy crust, and then the inside is nice and chewy and gooey in the center, filled with melty chocolate chips. It is just absolute perfection. Add a little icing on top and we are good to go. So let's go get started. This recipe also does not require a stand mixer, which is great. So we have a large bowl here, and to that I am adding 2 sticks of butter melted and cooled, and then 1 cup of brown sugar and 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar. And we're just going to whisk that around. And then to that I am adding 2 large eggs and 1 egg yolk. And then we also want to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Once that is thoroughly mixed and the sugar is dissolved, we are going to add our dry ingredients. So I have 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of cornstarch. And then we just want to whisk that together until it is just combined. You don't want to overmix this. And then I'm going to fold in 2 cups of chocolate chips. Now I have a 9-inch springform pan here that I greased with a little bit of cooking spray. And I'm just going to dump the batter in there and just spread it out nicely. And then we are going to put this on a cookie sheet. I always recommend that with a springform pan because sometimes the butter will leak, and that will definitely cause some smoke in your kitchen. So I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and we are going to bake this for about 35 to 40 minutes. It'll be nice and golden brown and won't be jiggling in the center anymore. If you want it even a little bit more well done and not have any like gooey center at all, then you'd probably want to do more like 45 to 50 minutes. So then we are going to let this cool completely in the pan, and once it is cool, we will remove the ring from the side. I went ahead and decorated the cake with some frosting. You could make your own or get it from a tube. And I just used a piping tip to create a little bit of a border around there, and then I just wrote happy birthday for my son. I really hope you enjoyed coming along and making this classic cookie cake with me. It is just so nostalgic. As I said, we always had them growing up, and I love now passing that tradition on and making it for my son. I really appreciate you all watching, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you, bye. Hey everyone, today we are making my New York style crumb cake, inspired by the wonderful bakeries all over New York. A soft, tender vanilla cake topped with rich, crunchy crumble and lots of sweet powdered sugar, perfect with a hot cup of coffee on a cold winter morning. So let's go get started. So in the bowl of my stand mixer, you could also use a large bowl with a hand mixer. I have 12 tablespoons of butter at room temperature that I cubed up, and I'm going to mix that with 1 cup of sugar until it is nice and light and fluffy. And then we are just going to scrape the sides and the bottom of the bowl and add in 3 eggs and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and we just want to give that a good stir. And then in a large bowl on the side, I combined 2.5 cups of flour with 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And we are just going to alternate adding that with 2/3 a cup of buttermilk to this wet mixture, just mixing. Now if you don't have buttermilk, you can just add 1/2 teaspoon of lemon juice to 2/3 a cup of milk, and that will make your buttermilk. So once that is all combined, I have a 9 by 13 inch pan that I lined with parchment paper, and we just want to spread that in the pan, and I have my oven preheated to 325 degrees. I like to par bake my cake so that the heavy crumb topping doesn't sink into the cake as much. So I like to bake it for about 15 to 20 minutes or until the top is just starting to set. And while we do that, we're going to make the crumb topping. So I have 2 sticks of butter melted, and to that I am adding in 3/4 of a cup of sugar, 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and we just want to make sure that's really nicely combined. And then we are going to add in 2.5 cups of flour. Now this is going to be a very, very thick batter paste kind of thing. So once our cake has baked for about 15 to 20 minutes. We're going to take it out of the oven and just take clumps of this and crumble it into little pieces all over the top, starting around the edges and working our way to the middle. You can make them all different sizes, pea-sized, quarter-sized, just make it a nice crumbly texture. So then we just want to bake that for an additional 20 to 25 minutes, or until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean and the crumb topping is slightly golden. So then we just want to let that cool and then dust it with powdered sugar. I usually use about 1 cup to 1.5 cups, but you can add as much or as little as you'd like. And then just cut it into squares. As I said earlier, this cake is just the sweetest, softest vanilla cake topped with those really crunchy, crumbly, well, crumbs. And then that super sweet powdered sugar dusted all over the top. It is the ultimate coffee cake and so good with coffee. It's something that we always had on Sundays after church growing up, and we made a lot of these where I used to work. They were always one of the first things to sell out. I really hope you enjoyed coming along with me and making my New York style crumb cake. If you give it a try, please be sure to leave me a comment and let me know what you think. And thank you so much for watching until the end. We will see you in the next one. Bye. Everyone, today we are making a homemade ice cream cake. We keep it easy by buying the ice cream, but make it special by making the fudge sauce, chocolate crunchies, and whipped frosting. I made this for my son's 2nd birthday because he loves ice cream and is not a big fan of cake. I made it Toy Story themed to fit his party, and a huge hit. He still asks for blue ice cream. First, we'll go over how to make the cake, and I'll also show you how I transformed it into a Toy Story cake. So let's go get started. We'll start off by saying that I made 2 of these cakes for 2 different parties. So when I'm making these, it's double batches. So the ingredients that I'm going to be reading out to you will probably not match up, and it'll seem like a lot more. An 8-inch by 3-inch cake pan here, and it is perfect for an ice cream cake, and it is lined with plastic wrap. And then I have a 1.5 quart container of chocolate ice cream that I took out about 20 minutes before I needed it so it would be softened, and I'm just smoothing that into the pan. And then you want to throw that into the freezer for 30 minutes, and while we're waiting, we are going to make our chocolate crunchies. So for one cake, I am adding 9 to 10 Oreos into the bowl of my mini food processor and just making crumbs. And then I am adding that to a bowl with 1.5 tablespoons of melted butter, and we're just going to give that a stir. And we are just going to spread them out on a parchment-lined sheet pan and bake at 350 degrees for 8 to 10 minutes, and then we want to let them cool. Then moving on to our fudge sauce. In a large bowl, I have 1 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips. And then to that I am adding 3 tablespoons of light corn syrup and a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then I have a 1/2 cup of heavy cream that I had in a saucepan on the stove, and I just heated it until it just started to boil. And we just want to pour that into the bowl over the chocolate to melt everything together. And that is our rich and creamy fudge sauce. So while that's slightly cooled, we just want to spread that on top of the chocolate ice cream layer. Sprinkle the chocolate crunchies on top of that, and then we want to pop this into the freezer for about 2 hours, or until everything is nice and firm. And then once that time is almost up, again we want to take a 1.5 quart container of vanilla ice cream out of the freezer about 20 minutes prior so it's softened, and then we are just going to spread that on top of the chocolate crunchies. And then again, we want to freeze that for at least 2 to 3 hours. I ended up leaving it in overnight. And then we want to use the plastic wrap to lift it out of the pan, transferring the cake to my cake stand. And while I'm working on the frosting, I just put the entire thing back into the freezer. Now to make the whipped frosting, I have 2 cups of cold heavy cream in a bowl, and to that I am adding 1 cup of powdered sugar and 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and using my hand mixer, I'm just going to whip this until stiff peaks form. Is to stick the whisks into the whipped cream And if you pull them out and turn it upside down, the peaks should stay sticking straight up instead of flopping over. At this point, you could just take this and cover the entire cake with the frosting as you would a regular cake and decorate it as you'd like. But to make the Toy Story themed cake, I added a little bit of blue food coloring, and I just lightly folded it in so that I wouldn't lose the air in my whipped cream. And then using a flat spatula, I am just working from the top and down the sides of the cake, trying to make it as nice and even as possible. I will say you have to work pretty quickly because the ice cream starts to melt, the whipped cream starts to get runny, but it is worth it in the end. And if you need to take a break, just put it into the freezer for about 15-20 minutes and then keep working. I should also mention, if you are doing the Toy Story themed cake, you want to save about a half a cup to 1 cup of the whipped cream and leave it white, do not dye it blue. And that's how we are going to make our clouds. So first of all, to make the border, I am using a round piping tip that I will link down below in my piping bag. And I am just going around the top and bottom border, just putting little dots all the way around. And then using the same piping tip, cleaned out of course, I'm going to make our clouds. So I did 2 dots on the top and 3 dots on the bottom all together to make little cloud shapes all over the cake. And then I will link down below all of the decorations. I got it all on Amazon, all of the little Toy Story figurines, the mini boxes, and the To Infinity and Beyond sign, which I thought was so adorable. I also added a mix of blue and white sprinkles that I found on Amazon as well, just to make it extra special for my little man. And there you have it, my homemade Toy Story themed ice cream cake. I really hope you enjoyed coming along and making it with me. As I said, it was a huge hit. My son loved it. It made him feel so special. You could tell he just still talks about it to this day, and it's been about 3 months, which for a 2-year-old is huge, and that's all I ever wanted, was to give him a super special birthday. As always, thank you so much for watching to the end. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment down below, and we will see you in the next one. Bye!